Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to CC Media, where it is all about Nintendo. And I just wrapped up watching the Indie World presentation of August 18th, and I gotta say, there was a lot of really cool stuff that Nintendo showed off there, and I was just really impressed by it as a whole. Today, I want to talk about this Indie World presentation and just kind of my overall thoughts on it, as well as dive into most of these specific games and my specific thoughts on those games. But before we jump into that, I want to talk specifically about my thoughts on the presentation as a whole. So I have to be honest, I am kind of frustrated with myself because in the past, I have not paid much attention to these Indie World presentations. That said, this time, for whatever reason, I really wanted to dive into this because something felt different in my mind this time, and I really wanted to invest the attention that I think is called for a lot of these games, because these indie developers put a lot of work into these titles, and I was kind of starting to feel a little bit bad about the reception of these Indie World presentations, because it seems like a lot of people, don't get me wrong, myself included, are hoping for a more normal Nintendo Direct. A lot of these indie games are really great, and I kind of feel bad for those developers for receiving that reception because it's nothing about them at all. It's just about Nintendo, which is a whole different thing. So this time I really wanted to focus on this showcase itself and forget about, my hopes for the 3D Mario remasters, which are hopefully happening, or, Breath of the Wild 2 information, any of that. I just put that aside and enjoyed this Indie World showcase for what it is. And I gotta say, what it is quite incredible. I hope that after watching this video and seeing my excitement for all of these indie games, that if you're in a similar situation, you'll start to feel a bit differently like I have today, and start to appreciate these indie developers and these indie games a bit more, and actually want to go out and play them. So anyways, let's talk about the games. The first game they showed off in this Indie World showcase was Hades, which is a roguelike dungeon crawler, and to me it just looks very smooth and it's got this very rich atmosphere, but personally it doesn't seem that applicable to me. But again, it looks amazing and there's clearly so much work put into it, so I'm very excited for you if you are excited for this game. Hypnospace Outlaw, or Hypnospace. I really hope I didn't mess that up too bad. This looks like an internet simulator, which is kind of interesting. I have not heard of this before, and I'll have to look into it a little bit more because it seems like a very interesting, quirky, fun thing. And there's a demo coming out later today that I will absolutely check out. And so, yeah, more info on my thoughts on Hypnospace Outlaw later on once I've figured out a little bit more what it actually is. Spiritfarer. Now this is one that especially jumped out to me. First off, just the animation style is gorgeous, and also it sort of hints at some very kind of sad but heartfelt elements of its story. I know it's sort of centered around, I guess, making your way to the afterlife, which is a really interesting thing, or at least I heard that idea thrown out there during the trailer while the developers were talking about it. But I'm just totally digging this game. I mean, I have to admit the part that really jumped out to me was that opening animated segment. But then when it jumped into the gameplay, I was almost a little bit less interested at first, but with more gameplay and as they showed more and more, as these worlds kind of came to life and you saw all these different colors and imaginative ideas and animations, I became equally invested as I was when the first animation popped up. And the best part, it releases later today. I can't believe it, but that's just awesome. Garden Story. This was described as sort of an action-adventure game, and it looks very cute and fun, and I love the idea of it being kind of a home away from home. I always love that sort of thing in games. That's why I love games like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing. It seems very charming, but it just isn't jumping out to me a whole lot for whatever reason, and it's not going to be on the Switch till next year, so it's definitely got time to wow me a little bit more. Subnautica is an underwater diving simulator. They described it as sort of like uncovering mysteries and treasures beneath the sea, and you gotta watch out for aggressive animals, and I am just loving this. Apparently this is something that I think has been out for quite some time, or at least people have known about it for a while, but it's definitely giving me Endless Ocean vibes, and I love Endless Ocean, and there's even a sequel, Subnautica Below Zero, and both of the games are coming to the Switch next year, so I will definitely be on the lookout for those. Takeshi and Hiroshi. So I'll have to look into this one a bit more because it certainly looks promising, but for whatever reason it just kind of got caught in the middle of everything during this Indie World, and the trailer wasn't entirely long, so I'll have to look into this one later on. First impressions, I really like the art style. It gives me very much kind of Christmas special vibes with the claymation animation style, which I really like, and it's sort of got some fighting and combat elements from what I could tell, so I'll have to look into that one a little bit more. Kaji or Raji? I actually couldn't tell if it was a K or an R, but this is an action-adventure game set in ancient India, and it dives into Indian culture. And oh my gosh, this game looks amazing. This might just be the single game that impressed me the most. Not just, you know, visually and artistically, but just I love the story behind this game, and the gameplay seems very intriguing and promising, and just everything about it I'm really liking, and it's coming to the Switch later today, so I am pumped! Bear and Breakfast. First off, I love the title. It is a wonderful play on words of bed and breakfast, but with a bear, and that, you know what? That actually pretty much describes the game itself. You are a bear taking ownership, or I think starting from the ground up, a bed and breakfast service. I love the premise. It seems really cute and fun, and I'm super into it. We'll see if I pick it up. I'm glad it's not releasing in the midst of everything else that's releasing today, because if I had to choose, it would probably end up lower on my list, so I'm glad that it'll hopefully have a more designated time to shine later on. A Short Hike. Whoa, what the heck is this art style, but I love it. It's got a very pixelated but 3D look, and I have to be honest, it reminds me so much of the Nintendo DS era, specifically like Super Mario 64 DS. Anyways, it's another game that's coming later today that I will probably check out, but I'll also have to decide which one I'm going to be playing first because there are so many games coming out later today. But like I said, it's a good thing. That's a good thing. But this one looks great. I'm super excited about it. It looks promising, so I will have to play it. I put down in my notes right here, realizing right now this is a super strong indie world, so diverse. And I think that's because it was about right here during the presentation where I realized this is a super strong showcase. We're getting so many different types of games here, and I've watched the indie world presentations in the past, you know, like I said, I wasn't too invested in them, but still I've seen them in the past, and there's been a lot of really cool stuff, but as far as I can tell, there's a lot of really great stuff here, and every game, for the most part, game after game, it's just so diverse, and so I'm really loving this presentation. I just found it funny that I wrote that there, and it's true. This is a really strong indie world. So let's continue. Card Shark. So this is a strategy game centered around card playing, and I'm not super into it, mostly because I'm not much of a card shark myself. I'm more of a Mario Kart shark, but this seems great for people who are into that. And yet again, this is another game with a really cool and unique art style too, so that just lifts it up even more. Torchlight 3. So I never played the other two. In fact, I never even heard much of this series, but man, there is a lot going on here. It just seems like this huge chaotic action game, and for me it doesn't jump out to me too much. It seems like something we've kind of seen before, but that's coming from someone who doesn't play games like this much to begin with, so don't take my word for it, but this just doesn't really seem for me. Manifold Garden. Oh man, this one jumped out to me right away because it's got such an interesting design with optical illusions and repeating structures, and it's another game that is dropping later today, which is just mind-blowing to me, but regardless, it looks really cool and intriguing, and I love the optical illusion aspect of it, and so I'll definitely check it out. Evergate. To me, this game looks very Ori-like, which is a good thing. Sure, it is a platformer, and we've seen plenty of those, but it looks great nonetheless. It's got this sort of dreamlike puzzle-solving vibe to it, and it introduces this soul flame mechanic, which also helps differentiate it. And oh my gosh, this game releases later today. I cannot believe it. I do not know which of these games I'm gonna play first. They also showed a quick glimpse with a sort of sizzle reel of some other games. They all look great. I won't go into detail too much here just because there was a lot of other stuff shown, but it all looks really good. There's a lot of really great looking games here. And Goose? Basically, we got Double Goose now. You can play 2 players in Untitled Goose Game on the Nintendo Switch, and it just looks amazing. I'm so glad that there's a 2-player update for this game on the Switch, and I really hope I'll be able to check it out and play with friends. So that pretty much wraps it up for the Indie World presentation, but I just want to put this out there. I want to thank all of these indie developers. I mean, I know it's not much coming from me, but I really appreciate just the amount of hard work and time that these developers are putting into bringing to life these magical and diverse worlds, and it's just so incredible to watch. I would love to have a Nintendo Direct, don't get me wrong, but this is almost just as important because it's proving just how great the Switch is in a completely different way. So guys, those are my thoughts on the Indie World presentation of August 18th. Let me know your thoughts down below, and subscribe to CC Media for all sorts of unique and fun Nintendo related content. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.